You've been lied to. They told you the secret to success is hustle, waking up before the sun, sleeping less, doing more, breaking your back to get ahead. But here you are, still stuck, still tired, still broke. And the worst part? You've been made to believe it's your fault. But what if the problem isn't that you're not doing enough? What if the problem is you're doing the wrong thing entirely? If all that hustle was the answer, why are so many people still broke? Why are you still burnt out, yet stuck in the same spot? And more importantly, why does the Bible, God's actual word, say something completely different? See, this video isn't here to tell you what you've already heard, because I don't believe you were created to just survive. You were designed to reign. Let me give you a strong proof from the life of the wealthiest man in history. Solomon, the wealthiest man to ever live, wasn't rich because he worked harder than everyone. He was not just the richest man in history, but the wisest. He wasn't sweating in the streets or clocking 100 hours a week. He didn't hustle his way to billions. He followed a divine strategy, a blueprint most people ignore. And guess what? He didn't get wealthy by grinding harder than everyone else. He built a system, a divine one. This is what most people miss. And honestly, it's what's keeping many Christians broke. They confuse exhaustion with excellence. They confuse effort with increase. They think being tired equals being productive. Meanwhile, the wealthiest man who ever lived was chilling in purpose, while others were drowning in sweat. So if you've been doing more, praying harder, working longer, but still feel stuck, this is for you. In this video, I'm walking you through Solomon's actual blueprint, what he did, what he knew, and how you can start doing it today. You won't hear the usual recycled advice like wake up at 5 a.m. or grind till your eyes bleed. That mindset is killing you, spiritually, emotionally, and financially. Instead, we're flipping the script. Because Solomon didn't chase wealth, he attracted it, through alignment, through wisdom, through divine instruction. And if you're serious about building a godly business, creating legacy, and making money without selling your soul, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Flourish in Wealth, where financial freedom begins. Let's tear down the first lie. The harder you work, the more successful you'll be. That's cute in theory, but reality says otherwise. You probably know people who work 10 times harder than CEOs, and they're still broke, still paycheck to paycheck, still stressed out, still stuck. Effort is honorable, don't get it twisted, but effort without wisdom, that's just spiritual burnout with a paycheck. The Bible doesn't celebrate pointless hustle. So in fact, Solomon himself called it out in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. He literally said, what do people get for all the toil and anxious striving with which they labor under the sun? All their days, their work is grief and pain. Just read that again. Grief, pain, toil, that's not blessing, that's slavery, dressed up as ambition. They're doing more, grinding harder, sacrificing their health, family, and peace. For what? A salary that barely keeps up with inflation? That's not God's plan, that's survival culture. But Solomon, he wasn't waking up at 4 in the morning doing 100 push-ups and watching motivational videos. He was building from a different blueprint. He operated by divine strategy, not hustle culture. Solomon didn't chase money. He built systems based on God's instruction, and money found him. Favor found him. Wealth found him. And here's the part nobody teaches. You have access to that same wisdom. The Bible says in Proverbs chapter 24, verse 3, by wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. It doesn't say by grinding your fingers to the bone. Wisdom builds, understanding establishes, knowledge multiplies. That's the model. So if you're working harder than ever but seeing less fruit, the problem isn't your effort, it's your alignment. You're not lazy, you're just misaligned. That's the first shift. Stop asking, how can I work more? Start asking, how can I work wiser? Because Solomon proved something you need to grab right now. You weren't called to build wealth by effort. You were called to build it by revelation. And that's just the beginning. So that brings us to my next point. Wisdom multiplies what hustle can't. Let's make something clear. Solomon didn't become the wealthiest man alive because he got lucky. He didn't win a jackpot. He didn't inherit some billion-dollar empire. What he had was applied wisdom. Big difference. Not just head knowledge, not trivia, not Bible verses he memorized. He took the wisdom and used it. That's what most people miss. They pray for wealth. They dream of freedom. They fast for financial breakthrough. But they reject the process that wisdom requires. Solomon didn't pray for cash. He didn't even ask God to make him rich. What did he ask for? 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 9, give your servant a discerning heart. That's what changed everything, not the money, not the power, not the palace. It started with a prayer for wisdom. And from that moment forward, God gave him more than he asked. Palaces, ships, nations bowing down, foreign kings sending gold by the tons. Because wisdom is the seed, wealth is the fruit. Let me show you something deeper. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 18, where wisdom literally speaks. With me are riches and honor, enduring wealth and prosperity. So many people want the wealth, but ignore the voice of wisdom that carries it. You don't need another course right now. You don't need to copy another guru on Instagram. You need discernment, because here's the raw truth. Opportunity without wisdom is a trap. You can have the right product at the wrong time. You can invest in the right market with the wrong heart. You can build the right business in the wrong season. And honestly, that misalignment will rob you. Tactical shift, put wisdom to work. So what do you actually do? You make space for wisdom intentionally. Let me give you something practical. Write this down. Read Proverbs like it's your business mentor, because, well, it is. Don't just read it for inspiration. Read it for instruction. Start every week with 30 minutes of Proverbs. Not as a devotional, but as a strategy session. Then take it further. Solomon didn't run after every opportunity. He moved with precision. He taxed strategically. He traded with intelligence. He built alliances that brought exponential returns. His moves weren't emotional. They were revealed. Now let me ask you, are you building from inspiration or from revelation? Because inspiration fades. Revelation fuels execution. And if you're constantly burnt out, frustrated, or confused, it's not because you're lazy. It's because you're leaking energy trying to build from your flesh what was only designed to be birthed by spirit. That's why wisdom matters. And that's why Solomon's next move wasn't just knowledge, it was relationships. This is something most people underestimate when it comes to wealth and elevation. Strategic connections. This is where Solomon stopped being just wise and started becoming unstoppable. Let me hit you with something that'll flip your whole mindset. Provision rarely drops from the sky. It usually walks into your life wearing skin. God sends people, not just miracles. And Solomon, he got that. He didn't isolate himself trying to do everything solo. He didn't sit in his palace and say God will provide while doing nothing. He built divine alliances. One of his most powerful relationships was with King Hiram of Tyre. That man didn't just show up with advice. He brought resources, skilled workers, high-end materials, everything Solomon needed to build the temple. Now pause. You might think, cool story, but what does that have to do with me? Everything, because you might be praying for money, and God is trying to send you a mentor. You might be asking for increase, but you're ignoring the partnership that's one DM away. Here's the truth. Isolation is expensive. Alignment is wealth. Why this matters: the kingdom runs on connection. We live in a culture that idolizes independence. Do it alone, grind in silence, move in secret. But in the kingdom, interdependence is power. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verse 9 says, "Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor." Solomon surrounded himself with advisors, diplomats, artisans, and financial experts. He didn't try to be the smartest guy in every room. He built rooms filled with wisdom. Some of you are trying to grow a godly business all by yourself and honestly wondering why you keep hitting a wall. You weren't meant to build alone. Favor flows through alignment. So let's talk practical for a moment. Here's your challenge this week. List 5 people you need to move closer to, not for clout, not to beg, but for alignment. Who challenges your thinking? Who carries keys to the next level of your assignment? It could be a mentor who shifts your mindset, a prayer warrior who covers your business, an investor who believes in your mission, or maybe a faith-based entrepreneur group that keeps you sharp. And here's the key: serve first. Don't just chase what you can get. Bring value, build trust. Relationships aren't just a luxury, they are part of the blueprint. If Solomon didn't have Hiram, the temple might have never been built. So if you're stuck, maybe it's not because you're lazy, maybe you're just disconnected. Start reading books like Kingdom-Driven Entrepreneur or Spirit-Led Business. Join masterminds, send the message, make the call. Wealth isn't just in your bank, it's in your circle. And once you get the right people around you, something shifts. You stop chasing. You start attracting. If you're vibing to this video, drop this in the comments. I align with Kingdom Wealth today. Say it, type it, own it. Now, we're going deep into positioning, why some people grind endlessly and stay broke, while others seem to effortlessly attract blessings. Spoiler, it's not luck, it's placement. Let me ask you something straight. What if the reason your business isn't growing isn't because you're not working hard enough, but because you're not where you're supposed to be? What if you're praying for harvest, but you're planted in the wrong soil? See, Solomon didn't chase wealth, he didn't run after opportunities, he was positioned. And that's what most people miss. Psalm 23 verse 6 says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me." Not maybe, not if I grind hard enough. Surely. When you're in position, blessings chase you. Solomon wasn't frantic. He wasn't checking crypto charts every 10 minutes. He wasn't on 5 business calls at once. He was still aligned, assigned, and, wealth came to him. The Queen of Sheba came to him. Traders came to him. Nations came to him because he was planted on purpose. You don't attract favor by hustling. You attract it by obeying. Imagine someone working 12 hours a day, planting seeds, watering, fertilizing, breaking their back in the sun. But it's the wrong field, wrong soil, wrong season, wrong crop, all that effort for nothing, and that's how some of us are living. Working 60-hour weeks in jobs God never called us to, building businesses He never endorsed, investing in things He never assigned. And we wonder why it's not working. Let me say it plain, God won't bless your grind if it's not aligned. Some of you are stuck not because you're lazy, but because you're out of position. All right, here's your next step. Go ahead and write this question down. Am I where God planted me, or just where I ended up? Then, take it to prayer. Seriously, ask yourself, is this business what I was called to do, or just what I thought would make money? Is this job fueling my purpose, or just paying bills while draining my soul? And is this niche, this product, this audience really aligned with what heaven gave me? If the answer is no, then it's time to pivot. Maybe you need to quit something that looks profitable but keeps you stuck. Or maybe, just maybe, your next season is about building content that educates, empowers, or serves through your calling. Not just sells. Positioning is the setup for attraction. It turns stress into strategy. It turns survival into overflow. Solomon didn't force it. He flowed. And when you do the same, even in famine, you'll still flourish, because your source isn't the market, it's the mission. Now let's go deeper. Because once you're positioned, the next question is, what are you planting? That's where real multiplication begins. Let's look at Solomon's secret to scaling without stress. Sowing for multiplication. This isn't theory, it's the foundation for biblical wealth that lasts. Let me tell you something that's going to shake you. You can't multiply what you refuse to release. And that's where most believers get stuck. They're praying for abundance, but living like hoarders. Saving everything, hiding their seed, holding back because of fear. But Solomon, he understood a principle that still works today. Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verse 6 says, "Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle, for you do not know which will succeed." That's not just about crops, That's investment strategy. He sowed into, infrastructure, innovation, trade routes, diplomacy, and business ventures. He didn't just pray and wait, he planted and worked. And honestly, that's where real multiplication happens. If your money isn't moving, it's not multiplying because, multiplication only visits what's been sown in faith and wisdom. Let's be honest, a lot of believers are stuck in fear. I can't invest. What if I lose it, or I can't start that idea? What if it fails? But, that's not wisdom, that's bondage. Solomon didn't throw money at everything, no. He evaluated the soil, he used discernment, he learned, he studied, and he made strategic moves. And you can too. Study the market, learn how compound interest works, understand biblical finance, and evaluate your impact. You don't need millions to plant. What you really need is clarity, consistency, and a bit of courage. Let's talk tactical moves. Where should you actually start sowing? Start small, but be intentional about it. Maybe open a brokerage account with a Christian-aligned platform. Take the time to learn about ETFs like Bible, Cath, or ISMD. Set aside 10% of your business profits for long-term sowing. You could fund a mission, invest in a business that lines up with your faith, mentor the next generation, or even build digital assets that'll outlive you. And here's the real wisdom. Solomon didn't just sow once, he built systems that made the harvest ongoing. Some harvests take months, some take years. But if you plant nothing, you'll reap nothing. Don't let fear make you financially barren. Because the chosen ones, they don't wait for perfect conditions. They plant, they water, they wait with wisdom. And when that harvest comes, it needs to land in something solid. And that brings us to the next game-changing principle. We're about to shift from income mode to impact mode. From just making money to building something that carries heaven's DNA. Let's be real, you can have a great product, a powerful calling, even a strong harvest, but if there's no structure, it will all collapse. Solomon didn't just stack gold, he built systems. He didn't just make money, he created an economy. A whole kingdom economy rooted in excellence, purpose, and order. That's what separates real wealth from quick cash. The temple he built wasn't just beautiful, it was functional. Materials were sourced with excellence. Workers were trained. Worship was central. Even his administration had order. And this is where so many entrepreneurs miss it. They're spiritual but sloppy, passionate but chaotic, inspired but disorganized. Let me say this clearly. God won't bless a business that's built on confusion. 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33. For God is not a God of disorder, but of peace. If your business is messy behind the scenes, fix that first. Clean hands invite clean profit. So, are your finances transparent? Are your taxes honest? Is your marketing truthful? And are your clients treated with dignity? Because Proverbs chapter 11 verse 1 says, "The Lord detests dishonest scales, but accurate weights find favor with him." If you're building something shady, God's not funding it. A godly business is one that can stand before heaven and say, "Everything here reflects you." And when you do that, you open the door to something even greater, legacy. So, Solomon didn't just build for himself, he built for generations. He didn't work for a salary. He created a realm, a structure, a movement, a kingdom. And that's what legacy is, really. It's what's still moving long after your hands stop working. It's what speaks when you're no longer speaking. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 22 says, "A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children." That's not just about money, it's about wisdom, structure, discipleship, systems, truth. You don't create legacy by clocking in. You create it by stepping into purpose and building with eternity in mind. That might mean, writing the book, launching the digital course, building the product, mentoring the next generation, or investing in things that live beyond your lifetime. Legacy is what happens when your calling meets courage. But all of this, the wisdom, the wealth, the systems, the influence, the legacy, it all started with one prayer. Solomon didn't begin with a business plan. He started on his knees. 1 Kings chapter 3 verse 9, "Give your servant a discerning heart." He didn't ask for gold. He didn't ask for success. He asked for wisdom. And God said, "Because you didn't ask selfishly, I'll give you everything." That's the secret nobody talks about. Solomon's billions didn't start in the marketplace. They started in the prayer closet. So before you launch, before you scale, before you chase one more tactic, pray. Ask God for the blueprint, for the timing, for the strategy, for the courage. Because the wealth that matters, the kind that flows without guilt, without grind, without compromise, it's birthed in alignment. You weren't made to survive off sweat. You were made to reign by wisdom, not by hustle, not by hype, but by heaven. If this hit you deep, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, subscribe, turn on the bell so you don't miss what's next. And if you're serious about breaking free financially God's way, make sure to check out my other video here. You won't want to miss it.